when you want what you actually say you want, and there's nothing in your energy or attention that can take you away from it, guess what? It actually happens really quickly and often extremely easily. Well, let me share an example with you from my own experience. I have many, but this one kind of stands out today. I was had a conference. I had a conference happening in Paris, and the day was approaching. And at that time, I actually didn't have the cash flow to make it an easy decision. So I felt this kind of urgency, this need to suddenly, bring in more money and make it happen. And yet I decided to just pause and kind of check in a little more clearly about what was going on. Why wasn't this easy as, I expected? And I noticed that I actually didn't have any excitement about it. And yes, it was Paris, France. It is a city that I enjoy traveling to, and the idea most of the time sounds fantastic. But in this particular occasion, I wasn't motivated to go. I thought about it, and I realized, the conference wasn't as important to me as I expected it to be. So I had a couple of choices. One choice was just to forget about it. If I didn't really want to go, then why bother? The next thing was, of course, do what most people do is like just say, like, this is what I thought of doing, this is what I had planned, and let's hustle and make the money and make it happen, no matter what it takes. And that would have been one opportunity to try out as well. But I chose a third one, and that third one was to say, hey, let me see if there is something I actually desire more than that it is actually true for me. And if it happens to be with this Paris trip, then awesome. But if it doesn't, then I can let go. I don't have to be there, right? Just because everybody else might have expected me to be there too, it was my choice. So I then tapped in and I imagined myself there. I thought, okay, what is it that I would actually love? If it isn't the conference itself, then why would I go? Why would I take that time and the funds and make it happen? Well, I zeroed in on a few things. First, I imagined myself. I'd already been there, so I have some awareness of the city, and I imagined myself walking down the Champs-Elysees and how that would feel. And it actually felt really good. Like I lit up really quickly. And I have a family member who lives there, and it was like, okay, well, I can visit. And that also felt really wonderful as well. I thought, great. So I'm getting a little closer. And then I also had a deeper desire to go to London and visit. It had been quite a while. And so I thought, I'll be so close and I can easily take a trip to London as well. So combining these three pieces, suddenly it felt really exciting and wonderful. And yes, I would go to the conference. Like, why not? And so that shifted my energy. That shifted my energy to what was actually true for me. Not what I had thought about, months before, or that I expected to go, or that others may judge me if I suddenly change my mind, or, worrying about like, financially, what was going to happen, what was going to be required. It like cleared away all of that clutter and got me down to what was actually true for me. And so once I got in touch with that energy, it was like everything suddenly shifted. And I wanted to promote my business. I felt like, making an offer. And I ended up doing a webinar, not with a feeling of, I have to do this to make it happen and, create sales. It wasn't with that kind of panic or stress. It was actually out of joy. And like I was able to reconnect with why I do what I do. And I did a really thorough webinar. And I sent it out to various people or, shared it. And honestly, I didn't have like a large audience at the time. And so there weren't too many people that watched it. But I had already made a very strong and clear intention inside that the right person would listen. And, whoever was a match would be there. I didn't need 10,000 people listening. I didn't even need 100 people listening, in fact. All I needed was that one person for whom it was a match. And that's exactly what happened. So I put out the webinar, and I can't remember whether it took a day or a couple of days, but I received a email saying that this person would like to talk to me. And at the same time, I also shared the video with somebody else who I had met recently, a couple of months earlier, and who had expressed a desire to really start changing his life and, working on his writing passion and create that. So I thought, you know what? I think he would actually benefit from this webinar as well and may encourage him. As it turns out, he decided to contact me as well and appreciated the webinar. And both of those people ended up working with me. And so very quickly, I think the whole experience was about 2 weeks maximum. I had the funds to go, and more importantly, I had the desire to go. And now, the whole experience was actually going to be fun, and it was going to be created by what I wanted, not just a have to. And so I really want to encourage you, if you find yourself kind of stuck, that you've been working towards a goal or a desire, and it's not coming to be, then usually there's something else going on, and it could be a multitude of reasons. But one of them I find is that most of us kind of glom onto the things that we think we're supposed to want and the reasons we're supposed to want them, instead of really tapping into our true self. And so I hope this story has kind of shown you how, as I said, how quickly things can shift as we shift, by the way, right? So something in me shifted. I opened myself to finding the joy. I chose the joy over anything that I had to do. I chose the joy over what others would think or say. And I chose the joy over what would have just been kind of a default reaction of making it happen, or then, say, choosing to put it on a credit card at the time, which at the time I wasn't open to. Sometimes I have been, and it's worked out that way. But on this occasion, that really wasn't my desire. And so tapping into what is actually true for you, what is perhaps the bigger picture. And so I expanded mine, right? It wasn't I looked at in the city, but I looked at also outside the city, right? The trip to London. And so bringing all of that together just made it a whole different experience. And then one that kind of my soul was just totally lit up about. And then brought me an idea on how I may connect and create more sales at the time. So it's not always easy, but it's always available. It's always present, and it's worth doing the work to get to that truth. Sometimes we can't see it for ourselves, though, right? Sometimes it's hard. We're so mired in a certain way of thinking and create a really small little kind of circle of space in which we can make decisions. And sometimes we really need to expand beyond that. So if you're in that place and you find I'm having a difficult time really expanding beyond what's happening around me right now or what I think should happen, then click the link below and sign up for a session. Sometimes that's all a person needs to really begin changing the way they're thinking and seeing what else is actually available and possible, or, as in my story, finding out what is actually true, what will light them up, where there isn't a sense of real effort. Yes, I did work. I created a webinar that took some time, that took some effort and planning and then putting it out. But it didn't feel like, work. That was a difference. It didn't feel like a have to. It actually felt like I'd love to do this because I really know that this information I'm sharing is going to be valuable for people out there. So, so if you'd like to sign up for a session, do contact me. Otherwise, put this into practice on your own and see what you can create now. See where the truth lies. This is, in a way, a small example compared to the many other things I've also created in this way, when I found I was just getting too stuck and perhaps too kind of emotionally wound up over a desire or a goal, and it wasn't happening, and yet there was so much tension around it. And so then I learned how to start switching into where there was more spaciousness, where there was actually natural desire, where even when I didn't know how I could make it happen or had a time limit, when I had to make something happen within a certain time, I was able to do that. So I hope that's been helpful. Love to hear your comments or your examples of when you also did the same and it worked for you.